If you are excited for the Khabib vs Gaethje fight, then be sure to show this by smashing the like button. Welcome back everybody to Keenan K TV. Khabib Nurmagomedov vs Justin Gaethje is now finally official for October 24th, 2020. For me personally, this is probably the only big fight I look forward to for the entire year. Not only because Khabib has become the man that he is today in terms of becoming one of the biggest popular fighters in the division, but just in terms of stylistically being able to compete against somebody like Justin Gaethje. Styles make fights. Most of the time, we might get blinded by the skill of a certain fighter and forget about the threat of the other. And so in this fight, after defeating Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje will not be in that position. People will legitimately give him his own credit and his own chances to defeating Khabib. But right now, with everything that has happened this year, plus Khabib losing his father, and what kind of a mindset will Khabib be? Before we get into my initial breakdown, let us dive in a little bit deeper into Khabib's mentality.
I think if my father is not my coach, I think maybe I'm like a different guy. Maybe I never come to UFC, maybe. But father all the time push me, all the time, all my life.
With the passing of his father, it is pretty natural to assume that Khabib might not want to continue on fighting without his father. Obviously, it was his father that brought him to the level that he was at. As he said, if it wasn't for his father, perhaps he wouldn't even have come to the United States, because it was really his father that drove him to be the man that he is today. Without the discipline, respect, and drive that his father drilled into Khabib wouldn't have turned out the man that he is today. But right now, with all the groundwork laid for Khabib by his father, now that he is gone, the two options that Khabib has are still very noble and honorable ways to go out about his career. In one way, he can stop fighting, because in reality, Khabib is already an overachiever. Just like Conor McGregor, he transcended the sport and he can virtually do anything that he wants while still remaining relevant and popular amongst everybody. And besides that, he has honored and inspired such a generation of new fighters that he doesn't need to continue on, because that foundation of inspiration has already been laid out. So even if Khabib were to take a step back and stop fighting, this whole new generation of Dagestan fighters, because he has paved the way for those younger guys. So with that said, you can clearly see why, even if Khabib were to stop, that he has been more than successful. But right now, he didn't decide to do that. He decided that he wanted to continue on inspiring his people and continue on carving out his own legacy in the sport of mixed martial arts. And luckily for Khabib Nurmagomedov, for the last 5 to 6 years, he has spent his entire training camps in the United States at the American Kickboxing Academy under Javier Mendez. And with that, Khabib has still a perfectly functioning and productive training camp in the United States, because for all of those years, every time Khabib went to the United States, his father was not there. So in terms of preparation, even though his father may not be there to give him any more input, the core of his training camp still is relatively the same. And because of this, I don't believe that Khabib's rhythm will be completely shocked by it. And besides that, I believe that Khabib has become a very fine young man who is mentally very sharp, who is a very responsible person, who also happens to be a very strong emotional man. I believe in the end, he will turn out just fine. If anything, he will probably be more motivated than ever. So with that said, let's move over to my initial breakdown of this fight. The highlight: Justin Gaethje vs Khabib The Eagle Nurmagomedov. The first question should be, what kind of a fight will this be? what kind of a fighter is Justin Gaethje and what kind of a fight will he bring come fight night. When it comes to Justin Gaethje, when he first entered the UFC, he was pretty much known for giving the fans a great show, going all out in these big brawling fights and seemingly never letting go of the gas pedal. But after suffering 2 defeats at the hands of Justin Gaethje and Eddie Alvarez, Gaethje tweaked his fighting style to be a little bit more energy efficient and more effective when he strikes. So as a result, we got to see Justin Gaethje fight a little bit more patient, a little bit more smart. He didn't go overboard when he found his opening for success against his opponents. He would counter with a one hit just at the right moment and then back off. He wouldn't overdo it, and because of that, he saved a lot of energy and he saved a lot of damage taken from his side. Now, at the same time, you may get the impression that Justin has become all of a sudden a very predominant outside fighter, but that is not really what he fights like. When you say an outside fighter, the first image that I get in my mind is a fighter like Edson Barboza, who always is on the back foot trying to find the kicking range. But the difference between Barboza and Gaethje is the fact that Gaethje is a very boxing heavy fighter. He likes that little tight pocket where they're face to face, chest to chest, and just winging on the inside. Whereas Barboza, he doesn't want that. He just wants to keep that distance. So when Khabib fought him, it was easy for him to just take away his kicking game by just pretty much walking him down, running him down. And by doing that, whatever threat Barboza had for Nurmagomedov, they were pretty much gone. But that is completely different now facing Justin Gaethje, because Khabib just can't recklessly run down Justin Gaethje because he will get hit straight in the face. And not only that, Justin Gaethje is one of the most powerful punchers in the entire division. I must say that Gaethje is probably the most heavy-fisted fighter in the division. Now, when it comes to labeling fighters hard hitters, I must make the difference between, for example, a Conor McGregor and a Justin Gaethje. Now, Conor McGregor, sure, he hits hard, but Conor's entire game plan or way to success comes down to the fact that he's able to time, counter, or create an opening in which the left hand can be fully rotated into and just catch the opponent off their feet. Just perfect execution, perfect technique. But when the technique is not perfect, the punch isn't powerful. And just as we saw when Conor fought Khabib, when he was being pressured on the back foot, when he was trying to land his shots, the execution wasn't perfect, the setup wasn't perfect, and as a result, the punches were not heavy. But when it comes to Justin Gaethje, his technique doesn't necessarily need to be perfect, neither does his setup need to be perfect, but as long as he can swing into those big powerful hooks, damage will follow. So, with that said, I must say that Justin Gaethje is the most powerful puncher that Khabib Nurmagomedov will ever face. Now, is Justin Gaethje a better knockout artist than Conor? Perhaps not, but Gaethje's consistency and his power is a lot better than Conor's, and as a result, he will actually have a better shot at hurting Khabib Nurmagomedov. Okay, so now with that said, let's talk about at what range they both like to fight at in terms of stand-up. When it comes to Khabib, he's kind of always on the outside of his reach. He always likes to move around, look for the opening. He rarely shoots in for a double leg takedown, and fundamentally, he really relies on the intimidation factor to back up most of his opponents. For example, against Dustin Poirier from the get-go of the fight, Khabib wasn't necessarily pressuring Dustin Poirier, and Dustin clearly had the opening to come forward and assert his dominance against Khabib, but he didn't do that. And it was mainly because of the fact that, look, at the same time, he may have been intimidated, but also Dustin Poirier doesn't really have the right straight punches required to frustrate a fighter like Khabib, so it all just came down to him being the perfect style to pressure a fighter like Dustin Poirier. When you take a look at Conor McGregor, for at least the opening of each round, Conor McGregor was successfully able to pressure Khabib, back him up. For example, at Quinta, when the first round happened, he was able to pressure him. And so was pretty much the entire opposition of Khabib, who actually decided to come forward and pressure him. Now, most of these fighters, they were obviously very inefficient with what they did, especially a fighter like Conor McGregor, who you would expect to have a lot more success on the front foot against Khabib, but I believe in that matchup, Conor McGregor did not expect that Khabib would be the faster fighter in terms of hand speed and footwork. He pretty much couldn't time him, and as a result, he got dominated in every single area. Now, with Justin Gaethje, the difference is this. Whereas Conor McGregor throws one big shot at a time, like I said earlier, Justin Gaethje is a lot more efficient with what he throws and when he throws it. He's pretty good with his jabs, and most importantly, at that long range where Conor McGregor likes to throw a high kick, Justin Gaethje likes to throw a leg kick. And him being an orthodox fighter, the stances aren't mirrored, so the leg kicking game isn't going to feel awkward or at an off angle, because Conor McGregor can't really throw leg kicks because most of the time the stances are mirrored. But for example, when you fought Nate Diaz, who is also a southpaw fighter, which means is right leg forward, left leg back, same as Conor, which means stances are crossing each other, so the back leg kicking the front leg is a lot more natural. So that is exactly why Justin Gaethje has all of that power in his leg kicks, because he has been training that, whereas Conor isn't simply going to be doing that because it is not going to be a very effective strike most of the time. So that being said, Gaethje's kicking game is actually ridiculously strong. Like I said, Justin Gaethje's fists are very heavy. I believe the most heavy aspect of Justin Gaethje's game are his leg kicks. And when it comes to pressuring somebody like Khabib, kicking the legs will be very effective because Khabib likes to bounce around, right? He likes to utilize his footwork, maintain distance, and get in and out before they even know it, because Khabib's speed is actually so ridiculously fast that people just can't time him. People can't comfortably counter whatever it is that he's doing, even a fighter like Conor. So when it comes to Justin Gaethje, I don't expect him to be able to counter a fighter like Khabib when he comes in with full speed, full explosion. But when he's able to slow him down and make openings, I believe Gaethje will be the most fit fighter to take advantage of those openings. So when he's coming forward, chopping the legs, jabbing him up, making Khabib back up against the fence, making him a little bit desperate, I believe at that point, Justin Gaethje will have a lot of success going to the body, going to the chin, everything. And also, when Khabib is backed up against the fence, and if you were to shoot him for a takedown, that takedown is most likely going to be a desperate takedown, which will be a takedown that will be easily stuffed or denied. So where does Khabib get his success in when it comes to the stand-up department? It is exactly where I said Khabib is just excelling everybody at. It is that footwork, it is that hand speed, it is that fight IQ. In the opening of the fight, even though Justin Gaethje can have his footwork, he won't quite have Khabib Nurmagomedov footwork. Even though he has his leg kicks, will he be able to find his range to land those leg kicks? And also, let us not forget that Khabib is the most dominant wrestler in the entire division. So kicking a wrestler is not really the most advised thing to do in general, period. So when you're going up against Khabib, you're not really thinking of leg kicks, I would assume. And when it comes to Justin Gaethje, perhaps there is a level of intimidation or respect, if you were to call it, for Khabib's wrestling game for Justin Gaethje to not throw his leg kicks. And when that occurs, a big threat gets eliminated. But let's just assume that it doesn't, and Khabib is able to catch the leg kicks. What happens then? It's pretty straightforward. He gets taken down and gets pretty much neutralized and beaten up on the mat. That will be the most straightforward thing that I can see happening. Now, in terms of Khabib pressuring Justin Gaethje, I don't really see it happening in terms of him just walking down Gaethje. But if he's able to add up a couple threats like takedown threats, jab him up, feint, pressure him close to the fence, shoot in, pin him against the fence, take him down, sure, that can happen. But I believe the most natural way for it to be going to the ground will definitely be by Khabib catching a leg kick or shooting in when there is like a big opening like he did against Conor McGregor. So with that being said, this is an awesome fight that I just can't wait to see go down October 24th at UFC 154 probably. Leave in the comment section down below who you think will win come fight night. I will be sure to make a lot more videos about this fight in the near future. So be sure to subscribe and like this video to stay notified. So with that being said, in the end, only time will tell what will truly happen. For now, I've been Keenan from Keenan KTV, signing off. Later.